All right, what's going on? Good morning, good afternoon, depending where you are. I'm Farzine Vesugian. It is the first pregame live chat of 2025. It's been a while since we've done one of these, but here we are. We are in week 18, the last week of the regular season. Chiefs and Broncos. It is Carson Wentz versus Bo Nix. I am expecting record-shattering views for this one, for this pregame live chat, because we got a lot of people that want to see this matchup. We know that, right? All right, sorry about that. Of course, we crash as soon as we talk about how thrilling of a matchup that is expected to be. But yes, Carson Wentz and Bo Nix. They'll be going head to head in today's game. Look, I know we're joking around with this game a lot, but I still think there are some things to look forward to in this game if you're a Chiefs fan. I get it. A lot of Chiefs fans might choose not to tune into this one here because there is not a lot of relevancy in this game for Kansas City. But what could happen in this football game? I think the Chiefs very likely will use this as a preseason type of football game to try to get a feel for some of their players and guys who they might be able to use in the future, whether short term or long term. DJ Humphries, let's start with him because that is a player that you're seriously considering using a lot of short term because that was the guy who you signed about a month or two ago to bring in and solve the woes at left tackle. Well, unfortunately, he got hurt, so you shifted Joe Tooney over to left tackle. Well, Mike Caliendo filled in at left guard. If Joe Tooney plays real well, and by the way, it sounds like this is a preseason game. The Broncos this is a preseason game for the Chiefs, while it's a playoff game for the Broncos. And the Broncos lead the NFL in sacks coming into Week 18. They got 7 on Joe Burrow last week, and I mean, listen, Cincinnati's offensive line is not very good. We've gone over that before. Anyone who pays attention knows that. But this is still a good test for DJ Humphries. And I think if you're Kansas City, this is a good chance for you guys to look at this and see what you got in DJ. Obviously, he looked out of shape when he first came back. Looked like a guy that had not played football all year. Imagine that. So is DJ Humphries going to be able to hold up when going up against Benito, who he's more than likely set to go up against? Nick Benito, that is. He's having a really good season on the year. How many sacks is it on him? 11 and a half sacks. One of the league leaders in the NFL in that category. So that is who DJ Humphries is expected to go up against. I don't know who's going to play right tackle. Could be Wanye Morris. I'd be curious to see if they let Kingsley Suamataia get some snaps in at right tackle. Maybe they let Kingsley play at some point in the second half. I don't know. So I'd be very curious to see what the Chiefs do there. Obviously, we mentioned Kingsley. He's one of the rookies the Chiefs drafted this year. The Chiefs actually drafted 2 more rookies on the offensive line, and those guys I'm actually very eager to see. Hunter Norzad and CJ Hansen, those are 2 interior offensive linemen. Hunter Norzad is listed as the backup center behind Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith is listed. CJ Hansen is listed as the backup guard, right guard behind Trey Smith. So those are 2 guys who are expected to play a lot in this game. Norzad was drafted in the 5th round, while CJ Hansen was drafted in the 7th round. So I'm excited to see those 2 guys. I think, when you're looking at Trey Smith, I think you got to look at the realistic possibility, especially if the Chiefs have a great postseason run and pull off the three-peat. A guy like Trey Smith is going to be in line to demand a lot of money with the guard market going up the way it has the past 2 years. Trey Smith is probably going to be very difficult to retain if you're Kansas City. So is it possible that Kansas City has the replacement for Trey Smith on the roster right now, whether it is CJ Hansen or Hunter Norzad, shifting him from center to right guard? It's a pretty easy transition for interior offensive linemen. Or maybe it's Mike Caliendo, who I feel like has been playing great at left guard, filling in for Joe Tooney's original position while Tooney shifted over to left tackle. Maybe stays at left tackle for the playoffs. We don't know. But maybe Mike Caliendo is a guy that you put at right guard if Trey Smith were to move on in the future. So I think the offensive line play is something I'm going to keep a very close eye on here. So that's something that I'm interested in seeing here. The other part of it, who is Carson Wentz going to have to throw to in this game? Well, he's going to have a few veterans. I think he's going to have some veterans to work with here. The first one, I think a lot of people are expecting this guy to play as DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins can earn up to $1 million in incentive bonuses if he catches a touchdown pass. I believe that is a $500,000 bonus. If he gets 9 receptions, that is a $250,000 bonus. If he gets 140 receiving yards, that is another $240,000 on top of that. So 250 for 9 catches, 140 for another 250. And if he catches a touchdown, I believe that is a $500,000. A couple of reports saying it's actually up to $750,000 and not $1 million. Meanwhile, other sources are saying $1 million, media sources, that is. So, okay, you got the idea. Anywhere from $750,000 to $1 million. That's a lot of money still. I think Hopkins is a guy that might be able to get the touchdown, maybe the 9 receptions. 140 yards might be a little bit of a tall order there, but it's doable. They let Chris Jones get that incentive bonus last year for the sack against the Chargers. So surely they'll let Hopkins do the same thing. Me personally, I don't prefer it. I'm not a big fan of these incentive bonuses, to be honest with you, because then if you need to rest your starters for week 18, but this guy has to go chase an incentive. I don't know, man. I'm not a big fan of that, to be honest with you. So then what happens if he gets hurt? I know there are some players chasing bonuses here. I'm telling you right now, I hope it doesn't happen, but if Hopkins does get hurt, there's going to be a big storyline this week in the NFL. Should the NFL do away with incentives? Because look what happened to DeAndre Hopkins. Could possibly miss out on a postseason run. His first potential Super Bowl in his career. So I don't know. It's not something I'm too excited about, but I suppose if you want good football action, you got at least DeAndre Hopkins. He's expected to play in this game. For how long? He might just chase 1 or 2 of those incentives. Like if he gets the touchdown, he might say, "Okay, we can live with 250 or 500, whatever it is." And again, I know there are conflicting reports out there about the touchdown incentive and how much he gets for that. But that's there for Hopkins. I'm also wondering, is Juju Smith-Schuster going to play in this game? Because you can't rest everybody. You're going to be resting Hollywood Brown, I would imagine. Xavier Worthy, I would just imagine they want to rest him. So Juju's probably in line to get some snaps, as well as Justin Watson, guys who've been on this team for a couple of years now. Smith on 2 different tenures, but still has some familiarity with this offense. Nico Remigio is someone who has been playing a lot on special teams lately and probably will get a lot more playing time on offense. He got a lot of attention in the preseason for his play on offense and special teams. So could a guy like Nico Remigio get a lot more playing time with Carson Wentz and possibly Chris Oladokun if he plays later in the game? They did elevate Chris Oladokun to the main roster by standard elevation, which certainly makes sense. I think that was expected, so we'll see what happens there. Carson Steele, I think, is going to get a lot more playing time as well. Carson Steele has not touched the football in the last 3 or 4 games. He's played, he's been on the field, but has not gotten any handoffs or any receptions in the last couple of games. So this is obviously a chance for him. He was getting involved early on, but I think once Kareem Hunt was signed, after the Pacheco injury and Samaje Perine started to get more and more familiar with the offense, that is when you gradually started seeing less of Carson Steele, and now you're not seeing any of him in terms of touches on the field. So those are the players I'm curious to see on the offensive side. Peyton Hendershot, I know that's a player the Chiefs traded for from the Cowboys right before the regular season. I'm not too crazy interested in Hendershot, but I suppose we'll get a chance to see what he can do filling in for Travis Kelce and possibly Noah Gray in this game. On the defensive side, who is expected to play? I think the one name that sticks out right away would have to be Joshua Uche. I don't know what's going on this year, and I've talked about this recently too on the podcast. So the Chiefs traded for Cam Thomas right before the regular season, the same time they got Peyton Hendershot, but they hardly ever used him, and they waived him. He ended up getting picked up by the Cleveland Browns. Understandably so. I mean, I think he's a solid football player that can play on any roster. He can be part of any of the 53-man rosters in the NFL. Joshua Uche is a guy that's shown some flashes in the past with New England. So a lot of people were excited when Kansas City acquired this move to get Uche, but we've hardly seen Uche on the field. So that's kind of triggered a lot of confusion in Kansas City. Why is he not getting the snaps? I know Charles Omenihu came back about a week or two after the trade, but still, for the Chiefs to not even give Uche opportunities is kind of confusing, considering you gave up something to bring him here in Kansas City. And I know Kansas City values all of their draft picks, maybe not the exact same, but the Chiefs have done a really good job in a lot of the later rounds of the draft. So you don't ever want to give up one of those picks to bring in a guy and not use him, kind of like Cam Thomas. So I'm wondering if we get a lot of Joshua Uche in this one. Maybe he shows what he can do. I remember last year, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, he played in Week 18 last year when the Chiefs rested their starters because they were locked into the 3 seed. And we saw some good things from FAU in that game against the Chargers. I know the Chargers, that was a depleted football team that was more than looking forward to the offseason, considering everything they went through with a fired head coach, quarterback injury, and everything else. But you still, FAU was a guy that, as a first-round pick, has really slowly moved along with his progress. We've seen flashes from him every year since he's been with the Chiefs, 2 years, really, but not much. So is this an opportunity for him to show that he should be more involved in the rotation in the playoffs? So those are the 2 names on the defensive line that I'm curious to see the most. As far as linebackers go, I'm thinking this is an area where you see a lot more of the starters, because there aren't a lot of linebackers on the team right now. You have Blake Lynch, who the Chiefs recently got. You also have Cam Jones, who's been part of the depth for a few weeks, really the season now. But that's really it. So is Leo Chenal going to play a lot more in this one? Or are we going to see a little bit of Nick Bolton or Drew Tranquil, especially if an injury occurs? That is what I'm curious to see. And then as far as the secondary goes, Keith Taylor, Christian Roland Wallace, Shamari Connor, who was a full participant in practice all week, Nazeeh Johnson, I think are guys that you're expected to see. I know the Chiefs, I believe they elevated Dion Bush, standard elevation. Let me just double check on that to make sure. No, actually, I'm not seeing anything about that on the news. For some reason, I thought it was. I know Chris Oladokun is one of the guys, and that came out right before the news that the Chiefs plane was stuck in the runway area at KCI Airport. Let me see, who was it? Blake Lynch and Chris Oladokun were the practice squad elevation players. Through standard elevation, that is. Okay, we'll see what they want to do there, but I thought I saw Dion Bush, but no. So I would imagine Brian Cook plays some safety in this game. The players that you're not expected to see: Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Pacheco, Hunt, Juwan Taylor, George Karlaftis, Chris Jones, Drew Tranquil, Nick Bolton, and even then, I think those 2 names, Tranquil and Bolton, might be a little bit of a stretch. I think they have to stay active. Justin Reed and Trent McDuffie. So those are the names that I would bet are very, very likely that you will not see them at all in this game, other than just on the sidelines, taking in the action. Your special teams guys, I mean, obviously they're going to say the same: Winchester, Ariza, and Butker. All right, I'm going to read some of your guys' comments now. See, as far as my score prediction, look, I'm going 31-17 Denver in this one. So I think Carson Wentz and the Chiefs offense, they'll be able to compete. But again, yeah, I think people are expecting a quarterback switch later in the game, and you're just going to see more and more inexperienced players as the game goes on, while Denver is fighting for its playoff life right now, especially with Cincinnati winning last night. So, by the way, I love the whole narrative that the Chiefs are scared of the Bengals. The Chiefs have done this 4 other times previously. This is their 5th time that they're going to rest their starters. And suddenly it's an issue when Cincinnati is the team that needs them to win. Eric says the Chiefs are going to eliminate the Bengals for the 3rd straight year this year by benching their starter. That is the ironic part here. The fan base that has talked all this shit on Kansas City the most, they're now the ones begging and pleading with the Chiefs to pull off a miracle upset. Because if I recall, so the Chiefs were 8-point betting underdogs on DraftKings. That has moved up to 11.5. Orlando Brown, yes, Brandon, this is correct. Orlando Brown did say that he would send a text message to his teammates and that he would buy Aaron Rodgers like a trip to wherever he wants. I hope Orlando Brown has the phone numbers of the backups, and I was looking through the list of backups. I don't know who Orlando Brown is familiar with. Maybe Juju. I just got a text from my mom. She wants to know for betting purposes, Chiefs or Broncos. I'm just gonna text her back real quickly and say Broncos. Oh man, I love when I got my mom and dad into sports betting, and they're into it. They really are. But what they do is they'll do like a parlay for every single game, but they'll only put like $1. So it's one of the low risk, high reward type of things. I don't think that's a smart way to bet, but if you're going to do it that way, just put $1. I suppose that's the way to do it. Now she's asking like 20 other questions while I'm doing this. Anyway. Oh, yeah. Good luck to Cincinnati. Oh, yeah. About Orlando Brown. Yeah, hopefully he has the numbers of the backups because I don't think he does other than Juju. Unless he knows them from like, other football related activities and events. Yeah. Hopefully everyone's doing okay in the storm. Somebody was jogging. Dude, my neighborhood was weird last night. There was actually a work truck that was struggling moving through the street in my neighborhood. And then there was a minivan that got stuck. I actually posted the video clip. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. They got stuck and just ended up parking on the side. I mean, I didn't care. It was right in front of my house, right close to my driveway. But again, I mean, I didn't care there. I understood what was going on. But they eventually got going. Just give the incentive. See, Charlie, I disagree with this. You got to earn it. I remember several years ago, there was a pitcher who I can't remember if it was a no-hitter or a perfect game for 8 2/3 innings. And the last batter ended up getting a base hit on him. And people were like, oh, just give it to. No, you don't just give things to people. You agreed on these things and you got to earn it. Though I think it'd be cool if Patrick Mahomes guaranteed Hopkins a commercial with Head and Shoulders shampoo. I mean, is that not the most perfect person to have for Head and Shoulders commercials? Yeah, Chris Jones. Dude, he got that sack and the entire sideline went nuts. I thought the Chiefs won the Super Bowl with that reaction. That was a pretty cool moment. Yeah, the 9 receptions of the touchdown. I agree with you, Brandon. The 140 yards is a bit of a stretch. Yeah, the idea that the back-to-back Super Bowl champions are afraid of anyone, especially a team they beat the last 3 times. Yeah, I love the people who are pretending like, oh, the Chiefs are not doing this to, keep their starters healthy. Yeah. Let's pretend like they're doing this because they fear someone. John, I kind of thought about this one. I think they want to keep Samaje Perine healthy. I don't. And now if Carson Steele gets hurt, yeah, you got to use somebody. And I think the next guy in line would be Perine. So maybe he plays a few snaps. But I'd be surprised if it was anything more than that. Yeah, I mean, listen, you want to look at Joe Burrow's most recent game and Mahomes' most recent game? Mahomes sliced and diced that defense. That same exact defense Burrow really struggled with. Yeah, seriously. Like, who was afraid of a team that just went above 500 for the first time all year at the end of the season? And they couldn't beat a team with a winning record until the last 2 games. I mean, listen, it's cool they won 5 in a row, but maybe it's too little too late. We'll see. Will Hendershot protect Wentz like he did Mahomes? Hopefully. It's funny because that time Henderson was not even playing. He was just wearing, street clothes. So that was pretty funny. He is still on IR, James. So he is not expected to play in this game. Dolphins will be in if they can beat the Jets. I do think the Dolphins will beat the Jets. Listen, for as much as we joke about the Bengals and their fans drawing up this narrative that, everyone's scared of them and all, I don't think it's going to be the Chiefs keeping them out because they need the Dolphins to lose. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers really is serious about playing possibly for the last time ever, which I don't know, man. I have a feeling he wants to play again. I don't think he's ready to walk away. That's just my opinion. But if that is a possibility, then maybe he goes lights out and plays the best game. But, dude, he's been playing like shit all year. The Jets have just been horrendous. And I know the Dolphins have not been the most consistent team, even with Tua back. But Miami, and I told you guys, I said Miami has a very favorable schedule to finish the season. I told you guys this several weeks ago. I think around Thanksgiving week. So I don't see Miami losing to a depleted Jets football team. And that is something that the Bengals need, is for the Jets to win. And I just don't see that. Which one's more likely, the Chiefs backups winning or the Jets winning? That's a good question. I would have to go with the Chiefs and their backups, because I can at least give the Chiefs backups a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, though I would be a little concerned defensively today. But the Jets, I just can't bet on the Jets. I just can't bet on the Jets. Chris Jones, I assume you mean Chris Jones and not Cam Jones, Gabriel. But yeah, I think Chris Jones is not going to play in this one. First of all, he's didn't practice all week, so they got to keep him for the playoffs. So if the Broncos do make the playoffs today, they will get the Bills in the first round. Yes, Brendan, that is correct. I don't think, regardless of what happens to the Chargers today against the Raiders, I don't think that matters. I think the Chargers either get the 6 seed or the 5 seed, and since Pittsburgh lost, I think they're waiting to see what seed they get based on the Chargers game. But yeah, the Broncos, it is either the 7th seed and you get to visit the Bills, or you're out. That is correct, Brandon. You do have that right. Yeah, some people think that. How do the Dolphins get in? They need to win. They need to beat the Jets, which I think is very possible. And then they need the Chiefs to beat the Broncos. I suppose, the Dolphins did Kansas City a nice big solid a few years ago. Remember that? Ryan Fitzpatrick going into was it Foxborough? Regardless, it was a terrible Dolphins team that beat Brady and the Patriots. And that gave the Chiefs the 2 seed. Back then, the 2 seed, you got to buy. So, yeah, I hope so too. She won some money last night. Without my advice, I was impressed. Do you remember the Chiefs had a worse defense in 2018 and still made the AFC Championship game? Mahomes had better stats than Burrow. Maybe don't listen to the Patriots, then be better. Listen, they've lost a lot of close games this year. But yeah, I agree with you, Aiden. Patrick Mahomes, for people that want to make all these excuses for Burrow, because the weird part is, and they said it last night on the broadcast on ESPN, that the Bengals have the league leader in passing yards, receiving yards, and sacks, and that's never happened before in NFL history. And there's a very good chance you're going to miss the playoffs. And you want to, blame that Kansas City is scared of you and they're putting their backups in on as to why you might not make the playoffs? Come on. And by the way, that was just complete dog shit of a final drive from the Steelers. I thought Russell Wilson was turning a corner and was starting to rebound. No, nuh-uh. Dude, the Steelers seriously need to consider another quarterback. They really do. Russell Wilson ain't it, man. I thought getting away from Denver, he had a chance with a change of scenery and everything. No. For a while, the Steelers were looking like a threat because they were in contention for the number 1 seed. It was the only 3 teams that had a shot were the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Steelers. It was a long shot for the Steelers, but they still had a chance. And now they've just gone from this team that doesn't even know how to play football right now. I mean, the Bengals look like a better football team than the Steelers, but I mean, at least the Steelers won a lot of games earlier on in the season, and the Bengals didn't. So they gave up the most first downs in NFL history. Did they really? What? I don't recall. I remember them co-leading the NFL in sacks with the Steelers, but also giving up the second most yards. That was a weird year. That defense was terrible. I mean, listen, that was a year where the Chiefs put up 40 on the Patriots and 51 on the Rams, and they still lost those two games. That is how bad the Chiefs defense was that year. If they were Bengal fans, that minivan would have been towed. Yeah. I think that was the Rockies game a few years ago. Pitcher blew his perfect game. A bad blown call by the first base umpire. Okay, that might have been what it was. I'm sure there have been some instances where pitchers have like a perfect game or a no-hitter, and then something happens in the 8th or 9th inning. So that kind of scenario has probably happened several times. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like you follow baseball a lot more than I do, because Lord knows I hardly watch any baseball outside of the Royals. Just a few Royals games, so I'll take your word for it. Yes, I am. Well, I'm not technically from Kansas City. I wasn't born here, but I've lived here essentially my entire life. By the way, let me just say something here, because I see your comment, Steve, about the Bills and Bengals facing each other, because a lot of people are saying the Chiefs would rather have the Bengals in so they play the Bills and knock them off. Are we sure that the Bengals are going to beat the Bills with that bad defense? I mean, I know the Bengals defense didn't look terrible yesterday, but I think I attribute that more to how shitty the Steelers offense is, especially lately. Because Josh Allen and James Cook, they will absolutely eviscerate that Bengals defense if they play them. I'm not entertaining any thought that the Bills would lose that game. And I've been critical of Josh Allen. Like, Josh Allen is winless. I think he's 0-4 against Mahomes and Burrow combined. I don't think that he would lose to Burrow this year. Not because Burrow's bad, but because that Bengals defense is horrendous. And I just don't know. I mean, as good as Burrow's been, his situational stats have not been great. And I don't know if I trust them to put up 40 in a desperate situation like that. Dolphins will beat the Jets without Tua. It took overtime last time to beat the Jets with Tua. Yeah, I mean, every game is different. Is Tua still hurt? I haven't followed that story. Yeah, there are a lot of headlines wondering if he'll play, so I don't know. I mean, listen, the Jets are still bad. Like, they're getting egregiously worse every week. I can't quite disagree. I think Mike Tomlin has to take some responsibility. Like, the play where Russell Wilson was running and decided not to go out of bounds, that play they should have spiked the football. 1,000, because they had a timeout in their pocket at that time. But because Russell Wilson did not know what the hell he was doing on that play, they just had to burn a timeout. And at that point, like, even if you got a completion, if you stayed in bounds, the amount of time it would have taken to run that far, because you had to throw it far to get within field goal range and spike it, that was going to take too much time. Does anyone know how expensive a Chiefs game at KC in November? Trying to figure out. I'll be honest, I don't, because I do not attend games in the cold. So I apologize. I don't have that answer for you. I feel like Rodgers wants to come back a year. Yeah, kind of like Brett Favre. Because remember, Brett Favre had 2 really bad years with the Packers, and people thought, oh, okay, this is it. And the Packers have a really special season. I think it was in 2007. Yeah, that was his last year, right? Because then he went to the Jets the following year. Because everyone thought Favre should have retired in 05 or 06. And then in 07, the Packers almost got to a Super Bowl. They played the Giants. That was when the Giants, Lawrence Tynes, remember former Chiefs kicker Lawrence Tynes? He missed 2 field goals in overtime, finally connected on a third. And he got all kinds of attention for that. I think he went on Letterman for that. Yeah, see, I was thinking that I was thinking the Steelers, if they do get the 5 seed, Brandon, I was thinking that they could beat the Texans and that the Steelers would come to Kansas City. But if they're not the 5 seed, then I think the Chargers, whoever the 5 seed is, I think can beat Houston. And I think that team is coming to Kansas City for the divisional round. That is my prediction. Unless the Broncos pull off a major upset in Buffalo, which I would not bet on. Oh, absolutely. I agree with you, Lissette. And here's the thing. Look at the quarterback class for next year, both free agency and the draft. The best quarterback right now that does not have a contract for 2025 is Sam Darnold. And there are a lot of rumors that the Vikings are going to keep Sam Darnold and that they might trade away J.J. McCarthy. And there is some talk out there that this draft class of quarterbacks is not very good. So Carson Wentz might be one of the better quarterbacks out there in free agency next year if he plays well today. So this is kind of like Carson Wentz's Super Bowl, essentially. Yeah, to everyone stay warm. Keep cool. Not cool. Keep warm, rather. Relax. I don't think Worthy, P. Ryan, maybe somebody else asked that earlier. Carson Steele, yes. I think he's going to be the feature back in this game for the Chiefs. Why didn't Wilson try and get out of bounds? Yeah, see, that's what I was asked. That's what everyone's asking. Like, that was just because it looked like he saw the defender coming and he just panicked and didn't know what to do. He hit square instead of the boost to run out of bounds. Bob Sutton's defense was great early on, but I just feel like that game against the Colts in the playoffs, that was like the start of his downfall. Josh Allen isn't running a bad 2-minute drill like last night. Yeah, that's for damn sure. I mean, listen, that 13-second game, and I know they were like really close to the end zone at the start of the 2-minute warning in that 13-second game, but Allen did throw 2 touchdowns inside 2 minutes at Arrowhead. Like that is very difficult to do. That is very difficult to do. Again, I know he was already close to the end zone right when the 2-minute warning started, or coming off the 2-minute timeout, but that drive they had to really get going. And then Tyreek did his thing, and people thought the game was over, but then they have that touchdown pass to Gabe Davis's 4th one. So yeah, that dude, and he's gotten better this year, especially taking care of the football. Look, I know the Ravens fans and Bills fans, boy, if you guys are on Twitter, those two fan bases are clashing over who should be MVP. I'm just like, listen, I think both quarterbacks are really having great seasons. I really do. And I think a majority of the NFL seasons, you can look at every MVP and say, well, they were good. There was also a case for the other guy. Most seasons. There are some seasons where it's clear cut who the top MVP is of all the candidates. I just feel like there are 3 very, very, very good candidates this year between Allen, Jackson, and Saquon Barkley. I'm sorry, man. Like 2,000 yards in today's NFL is not easy to get on the ground. It's not. And I'm not saying what Allen and Jackson, what they're doing is not impressive. But 2,000 yards, rushing yards, you can't ignore that. I'm very eager to see what the voting process is going to look like. Because I'm seeing a lot of people in the media last night and into this morning say that Lamar Jackson's your MVP. I don't know if he has it in the bag. I do think it's very close between him and Josh Allen. Very, very close. And I just don't think you can forget about Saquon Barkley. I get it's a quarterback award now, which I hate. You can't leave Saquon out though. If I had a vote, which I don't, but if I was one of those 50 voters, I'd vote for Saquon Barkley. I've been saying it for several weeks. And at some point, it looked like Allen, was going to run away with it, but I just feel like Saquon's the better football player this year. Like what he's doing and everything he's got going on. Yeah, Pickens. You know what's crazy is some people criticize Brett Veach for taking who was it? Sky Moore over Pickens. I mean, listen, anyone's better than Sky Moore, but Pickens, man, the off the field drama, on the field drama, I don't know. Like, he's not that much better than Sky freaking Moore of all people. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Steelers, he's a talented receiver. Where did I get this hoodie? I actually got this from Dick's Sporting Goods. They sent this to me. They were like, hey, DM us. Because I showed off my man cave about a couple of years ago. And it went viral. Like ESPN shared it. A lot of these popular sports websites on social media shared it. They liked it. And they're like, hey, we want to send you this hoodie because your man cave's cool. That's literally where I got it from. So if you just search Chiefs sweatshirt from Dick's Sporting Goods, you might be able to find it on there, Cody. Yeah, he was putting the team on his back. I agree with you. It kind of felt like they said his name like every other play, offensive play for the Steelers. And I said this earlier. I've said for a while, I feel like the Steelers have the best defense in the NFL. But if your offense is not returning you the favor, and I feel like the Chiefs did that exact same thing in that Buffalo game where the Chiefs defense kept getting stops, but the offense was not taking advantage of that, then, your defensive efforts won't mean much. I like the Steelers defense. I just don't know if their offense can provide any kind of equation there. Oh, this is interesting. So Jay Glazer said teams are trying to trade the Minnesota Vikings for their head coach, Kevin O'Connell. That is interesting because his contract is set to expire next year. That is very interesting. You hardly ever see this. I do remember the Chiefs gave up, I think it was a 4th-round pick, which ended up being Leon Washington. The Chiefs gave up, I think it was a 4th or 5th-round pick to get Herm Edwards. You don't see this kind of thing often, but it is that rumor is out there for Kevin O'Connell. That's interesting. A guy who might win Coach of the Year, by the way. I would franchise Darnold, keep McCarthy unless you offer the 1st-round pick. Maybe. But after listen, I know there still might be some questions about Sam Darnold. Can he do this over a long period of time in his career? Like, that's a valid question. The guy, there's a reason why the guy he went from a number 3 overall pick to a journeyman real fast. So I think there are some questions. It's not a terrible idea, Anthony, but at the same time, with what you have, don't you want to invest more in the rest of your football team and not go through a quarterback competition? I don't know. I'm just throwing possibilities out there. I don't have the answer to that. Yeah, they might be. Jaden Daniels, I mean, that guy's playing really, really well. And that's a franchise that once had RG3, who had a phenomenal rookie season, but then got hurt in that playoff game, thanks to Shanahan. And they've had some issues trying to get the replacements there, and now they got the guy. So this would be a really remarkable. I think Jaden Daniels, the playoffs, it will be a whole new ball game for him. But regardless what happens at Washington this year, that is going to be a football team that's going to stick around, and they're going to be competing for a very long time. If Jalen Hurts can play a little better too, I think the Eagles and the Commanders, they're going to be top dogs in that division for a very long time. Yeah, I think it's possible. The defense plays better than I think they will. Yeah, I think there's a chance. Yeah, that was weird. We kind of saw this the other week. Wasn't Mike Pennell? He was like drifting back in coverage in a game. And Chris Jones even pointed that out and like laughed about it. Because someone pointed that out on Twitter. It's like, I don't know, man. Yeah, the big dude with the interception, and they immediately went for the QB kneel. Or not QB kneel, but you know what I mean. He slid. That was pretty funny. Wasn't he? Isn't he like the fourth heaviest player to ever get an interception? Your thoughts on the Lions picking up Bridgewater out of retirement? Yeah, I saw that. I didn't really have any thoughts on it. I'll be honest, I did not know Bridgewater was retired. I just thought he was available. Yeah, somebody was asking this the other day. As far as my sleepers, and by the way, I'm gonna try to read a few more and get out of here since the games are about to start. As far as my sleepers go, on the AFC side, I think Denver could be a possible. I would not bet on Denver to beat Buffalo, but I think they've got a chance. That defense is pretty scary good. And then listen, you're going to see it today with Kansas City having backup offensive linemen. I think that would be the big difference maker in today's game between the Chiefs and Broncos is that defensive front versus Kansas City's backup offensive linemen. Other AFC dark horses. Yeah, I don't know. Denver to me on the NFC side, the Rams are a good pick. Commanders, I can't say I'd put money on the Commanders. Here's the thing: Minnesota's going to get the 1 seed, but I think people are kind of still sleeping on Minnesota. I guess because Sam Darnold's our quarterback, and I guess people haven't really been able to wrap around their heads that he's just playing so well this year. I don't know. I mean, listen, I'm not sure, but it just doesn't feel like Sam Darnold is getting the proper coverage he deserves for his level of play this year. Is Tony playing today? No, I would be surprised if he did. Yeah, I hope he does, but I don't think he will. It's just the voters are so attached to giving this award to a quarterback. That's what I don't like. I do remember that. I think that was the same year Peyton Manning came into Kansas City for that no punt playoff game. Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, listen, Josh Allen, he's struggling in Kansas City a lot in the play. I mean, he specifically has about the Bills as a team they have. Though Allen, I think, had opportunities to put the game away against the Chiefs, and he didn't last year. And then Jackson, yeah, his postseason resume is not good. Your MVP is Daniels. I think he's a rookie of the year. MVP, I think is maybe a bit of a stretch. Why don't the NFL do an MVP quarterback award and also do a player of the year award? I mean, I guess they kind of do offensive player of the year and MVP. Sometimes they go to the same guys. Sometimes the voters will do something different. Well, they'll give MVP to one guy and then they'll give offensive player of the year to the other guy who could have won MVP. That's at least what I've noticed with the awards over the years. Most years, not every single year. I'd argue Darnold for MVP if he balls out tonight and they get the 1 seed. He would have to have a really big game for that. I would actually say this, Aiden. I would replace Darnold and MVP with Kevin O'Connell and Coach of the Year. Because if the Vikings win this game, I think Kevin O'Connell has to win Coach of the Year. As much as I really, really believe Andy Reid deserves it, and I think it's crazy he's only won the award once. Because the Chiefs have overcame a lot this year to still get the number 1 seed and get 15 wins. But I think the Vikings, look, if you look at the Chiefs, you still, even with those injuries, you still said, okay, they have Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes. Whereas with the Vikings, who did the Vikings have? Okay, Justin Jefferson. Okay, who's throwing him the ball? Sam Darnold? No way. but that has been happening. So I think that has to be something because the credit that the Vikings are, and it's not just Justin Jefferson, but the thing about the Vikings is that they brought in JJ McCarthy, but that receiving core there with Addison, Jefferson, Hawkinson, like that is a good group of pass catchers to work with there. And a lot of quarterbacks could go into that system. Like if Patrick Mahomes had Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson, I think he'd be able to throw the ball really well and put up 5,000 yards. But no one thought Sam Darnold could do that. Again, this guy's been a journeyman. So I think that's why Kevin O'Connell gets Coach of the Year, and that the Vikings might be their GM. I know it's not like an official AP award, but some media outlets do Executive of the Year, and the Vikings could win because of that. All right, what's our time here? Okay, I'll read a couple more here. Group stats: 1501, 5,000 yards. I get what you're saying, Don, but you got to have the numbers. Like look at Joe Burrow. He's got the numbers, but the Bengals might not even make the playoffs. Allen and Jackson have been playing really well for a long period of time this season. That's the thing. Mahomes got off to he's playing much better lately. If the way Mahomes has played the last, essentially the second half of the season, if he played the same way in the first half, I think Mahomes 100% is in the conversation. But I think those turnover numbers early on were too much. And I know people are going to say, well, he had a lot of tip balls there by defense. Oh, yeah, but every quarterback has that. Every quarterback has some interceptions that were tipped and they just bounced the wrong way. So everyone goes through that. But here's the thing, by the way, to go back to Don's comment about the stats, Burrow played 17 games and couldn't get 4,700 yards. Patrick Mahomes, on not one, but two occasions, has had 5,000 passing yards in a 16-game span. Now, 2 years ago, they played 17 games, but Mahomes surpassed 5,000 passing yards at the end of the 16th game. And that was without Tyreek Hill, mind you. So I think it just shows you, like, yeah, Burrow's great, but he's just not on the same level as Patrick Mahomes right now. Herm Edwards killed the greatest team on grass until Mahomes showed up. I do know his son is a senior. I don't know about his other kids, though. I don't think any team is really trying to get Matt Nagy. I'd be surprised. I mean, look, I don't really know if he really deserves any of the offensive credit, honestly. Like, I've always said, this is Andy Reid's offense. Maybe that's why Bieniemy's not getting a job. Like, I don't know. I mean, there's a story there that we don't know with Bieniemy. Maybe it's his past with what happened 30 years ago. I don't know. Been saying for at least the last 2 months, it'll be Vikings Chiefs. That's what I predicted a couple of years ago. That did not age well, but if the Vikings get the number 1 seed, it's a strong possibility, Daniel, for sure. Lions wanted Teddy because they plan to offer him a coaching position next year. Okay, I did not know that. Carson Wentz good test today. Yes, especially with some offensive linemen who the Chiefs might be looking at and seeing if they're going to be good for the future. Do you think the Bengals are nervous with Kansas City playing their second straight? Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, let me put it to you like this, Rochelle. If the Chiefs needed the Bengals to win, God forbid the Chiefs are ever in that position, and the Bengals were not using the league leader in passing yards, receiving yards, and sacks, you'd be nervous too. I mean, we all would. So yeah, absolutely. Like if I'm a Bengals fan and I'm watching the Chiefs, I'm pretty nervous. Why do you think Bengals fans are trying to strike up this narrative? Oh, the Chiefs are scared. They're not man enough to use their starters. Come on. Like the Chiefs give a flying fuck about any of the other 31 other teams and what they need in week 18. Come on. Seriously. Like, let's not pretend like we don't know the real reason why the Chiefs are resting their starters. But hey, drive up the narratives. It's what people want to. People will do anything to diminish Kansas City, which is funny to me. The Chiefs are now that team that the Patriots were for so many years. It's funny to me. Like I said this earlier, but I'll say it again for those who came in late. The Chiefs have been resting their starters in week 17 and 18. This is their 5th time doing it now. Was never an issue the first 4 times. Now it's an issue because it's the Bengals. Like, okay. The Bengals need the Chiefs to win. That's funny. All right, guys, I'm out of here. We've been doing this for almost an hour. The games are about to start. Enjoy the games. Have fun today. I will talk to you all at halftime. We will do the halftime live stream. And then after the game, we will do the Chiefs Zone podcast, our post-game live stream after the game. Yes, even though it's going to be a lot of backups, I know it might not be the most exciting game, but still, I'm sure there will be some things to talk about, and we'll chat about it then. I'm Farzin Vasugian. I will talk to you all later. Take care. Enjoy your NFL Sunday.